Now that was a punch, one we dearly need. First, welcome. Secondly, it appears that the entire audio file of microphone
I don't care for this order.
somehow got deleted for reasons I do not understand, so I have to voice over at least some of it. We're probably going to make a little music more than usual, and then we're going to bring GROM to final victory. Oh boy, have I so. I love Windows. I love the democracy. I love Total War even more. As it appears, our situation is a little bit dire. Oh boy. Well, this city is lost. Without a doubt. Peter Jäger. How dare you? Vampire creature. Now we have 2 full stack. Marching on Paramon. Agulog the Arbil. Ratnik Spider Claw. Thing is, we are going for Black Orcs, and Black Orcs are extremely strong. So we eventually have to research the technology to achieve Black Claw friendliness. There are a lot of very good technologies. This is disturbing. I'm playing so fast and making so many decisions that I'm not audibly, but obviously voicing very fast. It's extremely difficult to actually voice over this. I would have to watch this several times, which would mean that we don't have so much more time recording actual new footage. You know what? I'm not going to voice over this entire fight. Oh. Okay, half a dozen full stacks just appearing out of nowhere. This. One more. This is getting ridiculous. Oh boy. Now I remember my reactions. They were a feast to behold.
The widest.
Soon our mighty rogue idols will join the fight. Even though we will not voice over the rest of this. Yeah, we will not be able to defend Paramon this way. So I'd say I'm going to give you a little music. I'm going to try to make the round times a little bit more convenient, a little bit more entertaining. Other than that, I truly am sorry. I'm using RTX voice with my NVIDIA graphics card, and obviously there are some difficulties after restarting your computer, because sometimes OBS does not recognize the microphone, which is ridiculous, but it is what it is. So I hope you're fun. I certainly had. GROM is a big boy, and it is fun to play. Really fun. Except when you're going against wood elves, but no one's fun against wood elves. So bye bye. Seeing you next episode.
Every time make Grom sick, it ain't worked.
This
GROM THE PAUNCH! Whole world's gonna be Groms! Biggest than all! The immensity!
what you ask is impossible.
You dishonor me. The Goblin King!
As you might have noticed, the music that I'm using may feel a little bit old, a little classic.
Killable Grom!
It's not that I don't like hip-hop or modern rock or anything similar. It's just it doesn't fit very well into Warhammer. It's a fantasy universe full of orcs and monsters. And you should always ask yourself, if you're trying to find some music for such a setting, what would Peter Jackson do? Would Peter Jackson use Lincoln Park in Lord of the Rings? And if the answer is no, then you won't do it. It's as simple as that. Ask yourself, what would Peter Jackson do? And if the answer is no, don't do it. There are certain instruments, certain vocals you should go after. I mean, the music doesn't really fit the scene. I'm obviously trying to bring some sort of boom into every time I click on the round button, and then I'm just letting the music play out or fade off. I could edit this much better, but I don't want to spend too much time into this one particular episode because it would require a lot of time. And we still have more episodes to plan out. Just want to let you know.
Chop 'em up good, corpulent magic.
If you don't like the music at all, just try it down. Maybe next time you're going to get some 50 sound action. Even though it, in my opinion, it won't fit in, but it's just my opinion. It's human, you can be wrong. Maybe your opinion is shit. Maybe what you think is bullshit. Maybe what I think is bullshit. Who am I to judge? I mean, seriously. Maybe...
Grom's gonna conquer these gigs.
Maybe hip-hop is one thing to perfect. What is... You know what?
Another time.
I am going to voice over a little bit. We're going to make a quick voiceover in talking about the future of
Snatch up the
gaming.
best stuff. Get in Grom's all.
Where should we start?
This is Grom's blood. Grom the
First, we're going to make Grom a little bit less loud. Okay, well, minus 11 decibels should do. Maybe it's too much. Wait. Okay, minus 7 decibels is fine. I'm still hearing nothing. Why am I hearing nothing? Did I turn off the sound? No. What is this? Devilry? We should hear some sound. Ah, okay. Problem with Total War. Okay, let's start that topic. We've already talked a lot about siege battles in the Reikland campaign. If you're not familiar with that, yeah, just take a look. General problems is the AI is stupid. The AM maps are too small. You only have one ring. I mean, multi-layered siege maps in medieval was the pinnacle of every siege battle. I mean, you had to destroy a wall and a gate, and then you went through a city, and then there was a second wall and a gate to crush, and then after the second wall there was a third wall. It was realistic. I mean, we're living in a goddamn fantasy style. I mean, there are giants, mammoth, dragons, undead creatures growing from beneath. Of course you would have 4 or 5 times the amount of walls that humans in reality had. I mean, this is a fantasy. If you have one wall, just one giant would crush it down. I mean, this is sieges. You need cannon towers. You need what we need is housing. We need actual ranged troops that are able to enter buildings, like in what the Empire. Yes, the word Empire and Napoleon. I'm not sure if Shogun, no, units weren't able to go into buildings in Shogun. So there are some fields where, to be honest, it's a downgrade for no apparent reason. Who would know? Who would know why? It's just happened. There was this nice meme, where this meeting, where there's people in a room, and someone says something very clever, and he's being ignored, and someone says very stupid, but one thing that appeases the management, and then in the third picture you see him getting kicked out of the window. I sometimes wonder what goes on in the heads of some Creative Assembly employees or in the management area, because there are so many features that have been, well, cut. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously they've gone into so much detail in unit and animation, in graphics, but so little detail in maps. I mean, look at the maps in Total War, in Warhammer especially. In general, they are flat. There are no certain terrains, no mountains to climb, no hills, no ravines. It's just flat, usually green land. There is almost no vegetation whatsoever, even if you're playing on extreme, on the highest graphics settings. And the maps are ridiculously small. We should have open warfare with thousands and tens of thousands of units roaming the battlefield. I mean, most of the times video games do have one particular excuse, and that is, we have consoles, we cannot make two. Well, good, because the consoles will not be able to, work out thousands of units walking around, which is also a development that will eventually improve very much over time. You just have to imagine if AMD is bringing into the new Xbox and new PS5, for example, Big Navi with 8, I hope it's 8 gigabits of VRAM, it means that we will be finally able to get good AAA games that look dashing. I mean, it's obvious. There are a lot of AAA games who are available on console that we do not have the greatest capabilities on our PCs. Because obviously, the developers are toning it down a lot of notches, and most developers do not take that time to optimize it or to make PC hardware use all those resources to create a much better looking or better working game. So consoles are actively holding PCs back. That is an argument that you could make. Usually, if you make Battlefield, if you make FIFA, if you whatever. But Total War is not a console game. Total War is a PC game. So what is really starting me, what's ridiculous about this is that Creative Assembly doesn't have this excuse. They have PCs. Since years, we have not only... we had the Intel situation, I apologize, Intel, with their 4-core, 6-core, 8-core, nowhere near reality. And just the heroic AMD came to be, and then we had 6 cores, 8 cores, now we have 10 cores, 12 cores, 16 cores, 32 cores, 64 cores, it's all available. So there's no more excuse for Creative Assembly, because they are obviously not serving the consoles, to hold back our experience. I mean, it took Creative Assembly years to finally make an engine that was capable of using multi-cores. I mean, Warhammer 2 isn't really optimized for multi-core usage. For example, Three Kingdoms is actually better optimized. The engine of Three Kingdoms is more powerful than Warhammer, at least in the sense that it's utilizing more cores. You can easily look at up in your processor, in your task manager, wherever you want, just play around with Warhammer and take a look at the process manager and then play Three Kingdoms. You will find a big difficulty. No, not the difficulty, big difference. And it took years for them to create an optimization. I mean, there was this new statistic with the new Intel processor, I don't know, 14mm plus, with their, you may have 4,000 more units in Total War with an Intel processor, which is of course bullshit. The Intel processors don't have any special cores or special software utilization. It will just work almost as well on an AMD processor, because on a single core and on megahertz spectrum, AMD has caught up almost to the same level. And because all of this, and because the powerful graphics card that they're around, you could use the tensor cores, you could use everything. It's there. Now we have DirectX 12 Ultimate, so there is no more excuse, and we must get in Warhammer 3 a truly multi-core optimized engine, and finally bigger maps and more units. The maps are small and there are not enough units on the ground. We should be able to play with laboratory settings, for example 5 times the unit count in campaign. In custom made campaigns with mods. What we really need is to step up the scale. Step up the scale to finally make it worthy. I mean, seriously, a battle between Crusaders and you have 1,000 men on the one side and 1,000 on the other, it's ridiculous. That's not warfare, that's... it's just a bad excuse for an afternoon clash before, well, dinner. So, graphics-wise, it's okay. It looks good. It just needs a little more polish. Not on the pixel count, but on the love for detail. For example, if you look at the vegetation on the campaign map, it looks good. If you look at the vegetation in battle maps, it's looking bad. And if you now take a look at the battle maps in Three Kingdoms, it looks even worse. That's something I do not understand, because it looks even worse than in Warhammer. So let's sum this up. Three Kingdoms has the more optimized engine, which can utilize more power, but they create a graphics downgrade, which doesn't make sense. You have a better optimized engine, but you tone down the graphic. Well, what? Why? Why Creative Assembly? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. Again, why would you do that? Why would you create a better optimized engine and then downgrade the graphics? From Warhammer, it is a downgrade. Not from vegetation, from lightning. There's so much going wrong, and this should be. This doesn't need to be. And frankly, I'm a bit tired of developers cutting down on features that people want. I mean, it's an interesting thing with AMD. They promised in the year 2017 that the Ryzen setup, that the motherboards will support up until 3 or 4 generations. And recently they had released their X570 motherboards. And then in a little statistic, without telling anybody, they wrote only Ryzen 3rd generation capable on 550, 570. So in the same time, they also wrote that the newer processors will not. So it is actually Ryzen 2, because the other is a Ryzen 1 Plus. So the generation that will come out in 2020 will not be able to be utilized on the former machines. And the backlash in the community was immense. So AMD decided to actually enable BIOS upgrade. Well, they will enable it on the X470, 450, and one more. So they will be able to use the new processor. But because there are some limitations to the BIOS sizes, and they can't store information about other BIOS versions anymore because it's too small. They can't downgrade their BIOS. So if you upgrade your BIOS for your motherboard, you will later be not able to downgrade and use an old processor. But it's okay, really. So there was a backlash in the community, and AMD actually decided, before anything was released, it was just an announcement, they decided to go to the community and say, okay guys, we listened. Okay, we're making a decision. We will make it possible, but it has its limitations. We did not want to do it earlier because it has limitations, but regardless, we're going to give you a choice. If you decide to do that, on your own risk. You will not be able to downgrade again. You can. And that actually is something very good. And there's this thing that developers or AMD is also a developer. They're developing software for example, their graphics cards, of course, and their motherboards or processors, but they listen to the customers. I'm not convinced that creative assemblies, for example, listen to the customers. There are tens, hundreds of thousands of people loving modifications. And for example, creative assembly is still not giving us the possibility of changing the campaign map, the layout. My theory is, of course, if the people now create extraordinary modifications for Warhammer 2, why would they bother to buy Warhammer 3? So I believe that Creative Assembly is releasing this not on purpose. So people will be inclined to upgrade to Warhammer 3 eventually. And if you're giving the community the tools to create their own game, some sense, why would they buy a new game if their own one would be better? I mean, it's also a capitulation by Creative Assembly, because this obviously means, in this logic, that they believe that the community will actually be able to create better games than they do. But it is what it is. My hope is that eventually, if Warhammer 3 gets released, and they have released their last DLC, which will take a long time, they will finally, I do hope that, release a worthy map editor, a worthy creator mode, where we can actually create custom maps, custom design, custom map layout, so we can create a new third age mod with modern graphics. Because the bases that we have in Warhammer 2, it's spectacular, it's awesome, it's grand, we have dragons, we have monsters, we could easily just punch a skin and call it Balrog. We could punch a skin and call it Mumakil. We have Mammoth. We have Mammoth with people on their backs. I mean, it's also one thing that I don't like about Warhammer 2. The monsters that have units on them are too few. 5 people on a giant spider, or half a dozen skinks on a Titanic Dreadsarian, that's not enough. Take a look at Lord of the Rings. They had a Mumakil, approximately the size of 2 Mammoth. And there were dozens of people on multi-layers. Of course, it's a balance problem, because if you're putting 40 archers on the back of an extremely strong monster, this monster will be able to cut down through people. That's also something you have to take into consideration, balance. And you can easily balance it. If a faction has strong monsters, the others just need mass. I can't expect, there's some people who it's ridiculous. They believe that a Griffon of the Empire needs to be able to kill a giant dragon. It's ridiculous. No, it doesn't. A tiny Griffon cannot kill a dragon. You need 10 Griffons to kill a dragon. That's okay. So we're going for mass. So if the hordes of the Lustrians have 20 Dreadsarian, okay, then we're going to send in 8,000 pikemen, and that's okay. It's okay. 400 pikemen can't kill 20 Dreadsarian. That's what people expect. It's ridiculous. Of course, humans need mass. It's the only way to destroy monsters. If we don't have the body mass, if we don't have the physical strength to overcome a monster, we need to kill him with cannon fire, musketeer fire, or just with mass. And send in 10,000 swordsmen against, I don't know, a Mammoth. It's okay. And he's going to crush 400, 500, 600, 700. It's okay. But it's a little bit realistic. And that's actually something that we do need. A bit more realism. Of course, we need to work on the animations. They look off. For example, if monsters fight with each other, their skeleton, their feet or hands, whatever. They overlap. They clip.
Goblin king!
So we need
Big as an
true
orc!
physics. So that if two objects
Bloated and
interfere or
unstoppable.
interact in any way, that actually something happens. The problem is physics in Total War
As you get
are not
worse,
based on any physical point, shoulder, hand, leg, torso, head. No, the physics in Total War only work with the what's it called? Baseline. So this tiny circle at the feet of a unit. That's the baseline for unit animation and interaction. We don't have true physics. I mean, it's also a downgrade from Rome. In Rome 2, we had true armor system, which means that if you shoot someone in the head, it will make more damage than if you shoot him in the leg or the breast. Warhammer doesn't have this. Warhammer does not have a true armor system, because no matter where a unit hits, it will always do the same damage after being number crushed with armor, melee defense, melee attack, weapon strength, charge bonus and whatnot. In Warhammer, it's just number crunching. And the actual damage inflicted to a certain body part, it's not being taken into consideration, and that's something bad. We need a true armor system again. That's something we don't understand. We once had an armor system, and now we don't. Well, why? Well, I mean, okay, we now have monsters, which will be removed in Troy, which is also, from my point of view, it's a stupid idea. Anakin. That scene was ridiculous. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Why would you say that? It's not epic. In Troy, the next smaller Total War, they want to remove the monsters. In Troy, Total War. I mean, the Minotaur, the Cyclop. Seriously? Creative Assembly. You have just created an epic engine. Epic monsters. The perfect basis for mythological creatures in a realistic Total War Troy setting. And then you're using humans? For example, as the Minotaur, why? You already did the groundwork. You created something extraordinary. Why would you take that? Why? It's it's the same thing again. They've created something extraordinary. And they're just throwing it away. It's ridiculous. It's something that's also problematic. It's a waste. You've invested resources into something very good,
They won't feel a thing.
and then you're not using it.
It's a pity.
Sometimes there are people,
Grom the Paunch!
for example programmers,
As you get worse,
and if a boss asks
back it
them,
off.
do we need this feature? And they know that every time that they have to change some lines, change something in the engine, build a new game, they will eventually have to edit this, because it will probably not work the first time, so it's work. So even if it's a good feature, they're probably saying, it's taking a lot of work, it's not really worth it. And then they're doing a sort of risk assessment. Is this feature very important, and how much effort does it take to keep it?
Goblin king!
And obviously they are doing a very bad risk assessment, because the features are awesome and it should not take much effort. If it actually does, it's a bad programmed engine. It's here we are again. The problem is we need a new engine made from ground up to actually support true physics. But as we know, Creative Assembly, they are not the first to be the engine changes. They usually, reusing an engine for hours, for decades, for millennia, until they are forced to use a slightly edited one to, get some features done. That's also a shame. Shame on you, Creative Assembly. I mean, I like Total War. I love Warhammer. I'm playing it a lot. It's the best Total War we have, but it is certainly not the best Total War that we could have. I'm repeating myself. Warhammer 2 is the best Total War that we have, but is certainly not the best Total War that we could have. That means we need to improve it. I'm not saying we are not Creative Assembly. The thing is that few developers actually consider is use the community. Look at, I know, modifications, licenses. Oh my god! Third Age. Oh my god, the Tolkien Foundation. We can never talk about this. They will sue us silly. Of course, you have to take copyright into consideration, and you can't let people roam around and modificate everything. At least in some countries it's forbidden, or at least under some regulation. But it does not mean that you should be afraid of your community because it's going to create extraordinary stuff. I mean, there were some experiments from developers that actually employed the great modders. Didn't work out that well, because someone that is using his free time is creating something that he loves, something that he's passionate about. And the moment I get paid for something, I'm thinking about the hours I'm going to spend and how much payment I'm going to get. I'm working for timelines, for time limits. So it's a problem actually to pay people for their good work. Because if they truly do it in their free time, it means that they actually care about it. A mighty King Kong that created Third Age, I'm not convinced that he would have well directed a team to create such an extraordinary mod if you would have been paid for it. Sometimes you have to try to balance out your passion and your lust to create something extraordinary, with the apparent problem that if you're being paid for your work, you're being paid for the time that you work. And sometimes it is much, much better if you take all the time that you need and want for a certain feature. And the great approach that companies like Creative Assembly have is to balance that out, to find a way to include modders' work, people's work, but not rip them off. You can't expect people to throw in 500 hours of work and not give them a dime. That's a problem that I've too have not solved yet. We need to balance this out. And we will. Together. All of us. So you spread the word. You talk to people and they talk to other people. We need to create an atmosphere where community and gaming developers join, and the combined effort create something extraordinary. And modifications limited to certain editors are not enough. So this is it. Stay tuned. I've talked too much. Have fun. And next episode will be a truly gameplay experience with voiceover. Because this needed some redoing. Bye bye. you.